Hare Krishna. Question: I am an introvert and I find the social and public practices of Bhakti within ISKCON quite uncomfortable. So, what should I do? I find going for Harinam Sankirtan, constantly mixing with people, very difficult. I would like to sit alone and study and think, and when I am with too many people I just can't think clearly, and that is not just with respect to Bhakti. Even in my ordinary life I like to be alone. So how can I practice Bhakti? But whenever I want to be alone in private, I am told that one should always be in the association of devotees, that being alone is being in Maya. So actually I feel more connected with Krishna when I am alone and more disoriented when I am mixing with too many people. So how can I practice Bhakti? Answer: if one is an introvert, then that is a part of one's psychophysical nature, and ultimately one has to practice Bhakti according to one's psychophysical nature. The whole system of Varnashram is meant to enable us to practice Bhakti according to our psychophysical nature. So now that of course talks about the four Varnas, not exactly about introversion or extroversion. But the principle is practicing Bhakti doesn't mean necessarily going against our basic bodily nature. Yes, we have to go against the body's urges for lust, anger, greed, envy, pride, illusion, but that is different. So if one finds that one is an introvert, then what does one do? We can find out services which allow us to use one's introversion in Krishna's service. There are many services like that. Writing, editing, Shastric study and teaching. These are introvert services primarily. These are services in which introverts can flourish. So in general the point is that one should not stay unengaged. And for many people, perhaps even for most people, being in the association of others helps one to not get manipulated like a puppet by one's mind. So, for example, if we are with others, and even if our mind impels us to do something wrong, we will not do that because there's someone else watching. So, this does not necessarily mean that that being with others is the only way to practice Bhakti. That is one way which works for many people and is safe for many people also. But the point is one has to stay engaged, and certain services require to some extent certain amount of at least, not necessarily seclusion in terms of being alone on the mountain top, but at least some amount of time to oneself, time for oneself. So we can choose and focus on those activities which allow us to become absorbed more and more. So with respect to kirtans, it's not necessary that everybody has to be doing kirtan with open eyes, dancing a lot and looking at everyone and smiling and laughing. That is one way to do kirtan. Some devotees may just close their eyes and fold their hands, and even if they dance inconspicuously, and otherwise you can just if sitting kirtan, just close their eyes and absorb yourself. So actually within a devotional activity which is also public, one can do it in a way that is more conducive for one's inner absorption. And as far as the association of devotees in general is concerned, we can find out within the devotee community who are the other introverts, and then when we are in their association, then we won't feel the constant pressure, oh you have to talk something, and there will be time to think between the talks. There will be time to actually process the contents of our own consciousness before speaking. When one is an extrovert, one needs to speak. Extrovert people just want to speak constantly. For them, the focus of the action is external. For introverts, the focus of the action is internal. That means they're thinking of their thoughts, thinking deeply about them, and then they will speak. Now, I'm not saying either of these are necessarily better or worse. It is just that these are different natures. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur also says, based on Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Samad Sindhu, that we should have like-minded devotee association. What Rupa Goswami says, Sajati Ashasnita Sangha. That we should have association of those people who have the same category of desires as we have. That means that we should have like-minded association. So introverts can choose to associate with other introverts. And now it may not be very easy to find out who are the other introverts, but if we stay in association for some time, we can easily make out. Actually, there are some people who just delight in conversations, especially in group conversations, and there are some people who prefer to have conversations. The introverts are not people who hate other people. Introverts also like people, but they like people one or two at a time, and they like people with some time in between. Extrovert generally finish an interaction within the interaction itself. That means A meets B and then it's over. If for introvert, if A meets B, then afterwards A needs to time to think about what happened in the meeting, and it's not necessarily in any way form a weakness. It is just a trait which we have, and often introverts tend to be deep thinkers. And if the introversion is carefully channelized in devotional service, that means that other devotees also shouldn't be telling, hey, you should always be with you. Why are you so silent? Speak something. And come and be with devotees. No, not necessary. If a person is constructively engaged, if a person likes to read more, like to study more, then what we should do is that should be encouraged. But then the devotee should also get some service in that direction. So writing and editing are very good services for people with this kind of nature, this kind of orientation. And there are other services also which one can develop. One can find out according to one's nature which services I can do the best, and then one will get one's room. The important point is we should be engaged in devotional service. And often many of the great insights in the world's history have come from introverts, because they think deeply about concepts, and that's how they are able to give better explanations of existing things, come up with new concepts. And similarly in the devotee community also, those introverts who make sure that their introversion doesn't become abused by Maya as a tool to attack them, because if they are alone, then if they are attacked by Maya, there will be no one to protect them. So they have to be cautious that even when they are alone, that they protect themselves. And not only that, even when they are alone, they keep themselves constructively engaged, and they also have some other sympathetic devotee guide who understands their introversion, who understands their need for time for themselves, and who keeps a watch on them within that a particular frame of mind and particular way of living. So it's important to have a devotee guide who understands the needs of an introvert nature, and at the same time also understand their dangers, so that one is protected. So that way we just need some facility properly in an understanding community of devotees by which you can practice devotional service. And it may be a little difficult initially, because in the early days of devotion, often the idea is that everybody has to conform to a particular standard of behavior in order to be a devotee. Yes, there is certainly conformity in so many aspects, but it's not that a Kshatriya has to become a Brahmana in terms of conformity to be a devotee, or a Brahmana has to become a Kshatriya. So this understanding that being spiritual does not mean that we all have to conform exactly in the same ways. That may take some time for devotees to understand, and that's why we should find out those devotees who understand us and associate with them more, and not mix with those devotees who are constantly discouraging and disapproving, because that will dishearten us and we may unnecessarily give up bhakti. So what we need to give up is the association that discourages and disapproves, not association itself. And what we need to choose is ways in which we can practice bhakti which is more or less in harmony with our introvert nature. And rather than thinking that I have to give up bhakti, because bhakti involves public and social activities. Yes, public and social activities are part of bhakti, and to the extent they are part, they can be done. But beyond that, bhakti has much more in it. and we can do the activities according to our nature, and that way continue practicing Bhakti. Thank you. Hare Krishna.